On this episode of the Nugget Project, we're replacing all this with this. G'day guys, welcome back. Well, this is actually my second attempt at filming this video. I filmed a bunch of it just with my GoPro, but it was the last couple of weeks of work. I was really off it. I was in a grumpy mood. I was just too busy. I just wanted to work on the car at night and not film. And it showed, and you guys deserve better. So I'm redoing it. So you'll see a bit of older footage in there where I've got a bit more beard going on, and that explains why I've got that older footage. So let's recap as to what I've done over the last couple of weeks. Now, as mentioned, we have ditched our heater system, which we pulled out in the last video. So we don't need these heater controls anymore. All this, completely redundant. Get out of here. Which also means our little panel here is also redundant because we don't need the slot here for the heater controls. We can neaten it all up. So all I really need is 3 switches. I need one for the new Demister, because it really is, it's on or off. It either works or it doesn't. There's a garbage truck, sorry about the noise. It's on or off, and that's it. I want one for my monster taco, just so I can turn it on and off, just in case anything goes wrong, and one for the 1-gauge system. And that is it. That's all the switches I have. I don't need one for the lights and the gauges on and off, because I just leave them on all the time, that's fine. And then I've obviously got my main power switch and my hazard switch, so I can get rid of everything else. So what I did is I cut a new panel and cleaned up a bunch of the wiring. I wasn't stoked on how the wiring was back there. It was kind of rushed because I was doing videos and I just kind of wanted to get it done for the videos, which is a terrible thing to do. I should have done it properly. So this time I spent a bit of time and I did it properly. I had a lot of feeds running off just like this little accessory wire. It was too much amperage for this little wire. I didn't like it. So I've run a proper big feed off of the dead side of the kill switch. So obviously when you turn it off, that side dies, but I've got a main feed coming off that going to a fuse box with a relay. So basically all that'll only power up when you turn the ignition on. So it's an ignition powered relay. And then I've just got a nice solid feed basically from the battery to run all these accessories, to run my 1-gauge, my heater box, and my monster taco, and all that sort of stuff, and anything else. I'm also putting in a couple of USB charging ports for my cameras, which we are allowed to do in the regulations, which will save on dealing with batteries and all that sort of stuff. I think I have them here. 1 second. I've got a little box of goodies. Here we go. So these guys, I haven't even opened it up yet. eBay special, because that's how we roll on the Nugget Project. So these guys, they're really handy. I've put one of these in the saw and I've got one in the Subi. So if we have a look here, so all that is just a little control box, and you've just got a positive and a negative wire, and then these just give you a USB port. So then you just plug in whatever type of connection it is. Chargers, no more batteries, don't have to worry about any of that. And that literally was like $8. So good. So that's all going to be wired into that new panel. Now with that panel, so I basically just cut it out of a sheet of alloy. I copied the old one as a template, and then recopied where the kill switch is and the hazard light switch, and then I just measured up and put in some new switch holes. And then, because I had a lot of space, I thought I'm going to make it pretty, so I wrapped it in black vinyl and then did a cog graphic kind of to match the theme of the Nugget Project, and it looks kind of cool, I reckon. So, you know, these little things, it only takes a few more minutes, but I like a well-presented race car if I can. So yes, that is my story with that. Also, we pulled a bunch of weight out the car, which I did mention. We took all that sound deadening out the footwell. From memory, I've got my spec sheet up there somewhere. It's 2.8 kilos, I think. So that was really good. That was just a little bit of sound deadening up on the firewall and in the footwell. So I pulled that out, and then obviously it's left a bit of a mess. So I cleaned all that up, I scraped it. I used a cleanie wheel on the grinder, ground off there's a few little pokey bits that hold carpet and stuff in. I cut all them off because we don't want pokey bits near our feet and stuff in race cars. And then gave it a good paint. So it actually looks pretty cool now. So we'll go and have a look at that in a minute. And so that kind of catches us up to where we are today. It's a lovely sunny day. I finished work today. I dropped off my hard drives. I am done until I have to go and shoot Summer Nats in 2 weeks' time. Burn out cars. But anyway, that's a story for another time. Alrighty, so let me show you a couple of things. We'll use this. So here is our new center panel, and I've got my label maker out and I've got that all done. I reckon it looks pretty cool. It's got a few bubbles in it, whatever. It's much nicer than just a plain alloy panel. Looks pretty good. So all the wiring, I've got to neaten up the wiring back there, but it does all make sense now, and I can add, so I've got ports here that I can add for my USB charger and all that sort of stuff. Very cool, stoked. The floor looks great, we've painted all that. Same with that side, so all the sound deadening's off. That's all painted, looks great. So the other thing I mentioned that I need to do is relocate the ECU, and you're like, why would you need to do that? Well, the ECU, this is our stock ECU. So it's a Hyundai XL ECU. That lives up under the dash about here. It is a pain in the neck to get to, and in a lot of races, they do want to inspect the ECU to make sure it hasn't been tampered with. So sometimes they actually take the ECU out of your car, give it to somebody else, swap them, or they just need to see that it hasn't been tampered. Mine has, I don't know if you guys can see that, has a sticker on there. That was from the Victorian State Racing Series, where they seal it up, and that basically means that it hasn't been tampered with, you know, and next time somebody pulls that out, they're gonna go, cool, that's not tampered. Now, during that one, it was a super hot day, and I was upside down in the car with a 12mm spanner trying to get this thing out from under the dash. It's a nightmare. So what everyone does is they relocate the ECU somewhere accessible. Now, if we go back to my GoPro here, so a lot of guys will relocate them just between the roll cage and the fuse box here, but because my roll cage is a bit more fantastic and over the top, we don't have room there. So I've basically got two options. I can kind of get it down here, but the problem is XLs are notorious for leaking a little bit around here, especially when we've been fettling with them. And this is where the water pools down in this little bit here. I don't want the ECU sitting in the water, obviously. That would be terrible. So I have loosened the loom as much as possible. It's given us a bit of room. I think I'm gonna put it here. So we have the ECU locked off there. Yes, it's next to my leg, but I've sat in the car. It doesn't interfere with my driving at all. It's not a sharp thing, so it's not gonna, if I hit my leg on that, it's not gonna be a problem at all. But that's pretty much the only spot I can really have it. So I'm gonna make up some clamps here, and we'll make up a little, so it's got little bits here we can bracket up. And basically what I wanna do is I wanna use some wing nuts. So if I get pulled in, I can literally, this thing's just got one lever, unclamp the wiring loom, undo the wing nuts, pull the ECU out and give it to them stress-free, because it's a bloody headache. I don't want tools or anything in the car. So this I can just do with my fingers, undo it. I'll probably put a couple of spring washers on there just to keep it locked. And that's it. So that's another thing we need to do today. All right, I'm gonna gloss over a lot of this because you guys don't need to see this. I'm gonna fix up all this wiring, just neaten it all up, cable tie it all out of place, or into place. And then I'm going to put in my USB port. So for my phone, which sits here, my 360 camera usually sits somewhere around here. So I'll run a cable up here. And then my GoPro sits up here. So I want to run a wire up to here with a USB port. Let's just time lapse this. You guys don't need to see it. Let's do it. Alrighty, progress is being made. So it's getting pretty hot in here actually. It's actually a nice day in Melbourne for once. Who'd have thunk it? So we've got a lot of the wiring sorted out. Now, little fuse boxes here. I've just got to put fuses in for these new connections, so that's good. So we've now got our USB box here, and there's one of the USB ports, so that will power the 360 cam that sits here. And the other one is just sitting here at the moment. I am going to thread all that through and probably mount it over here somewhere so I can just plug my phone in. I'll buy some short cables off eBay, and then we can just run a short cable there, and that'll power the phone, so that's good. So I'll just cable tie that up somewhere. Ran the wiring down here. And how funny is this? So this is screwed in here. These were actually stock screw holes for the interior. Somehow they're perfectly spaced for this little box, and this box is in there super securely. So I've just got my earth lead there, and then the power just runs down, blah, blah, blah. Now, this does have two USB ports, but I only need one, but I've got a spare there. So if I do run two cameras up on this cage for whatever reason, I've got another one there, but I've just cable tied that out the way for now. And then we've got our main USB feed here. So what I'll probably do is figure out what length cable I need, because my camera usually mounts, you can see the marks here. So camera usually mounts there. So then I'll just run the charge cable along this bar, and we'll just connect it up there, and probably just bit of electrical tape or something, just try and keep it nice and neat, maybe over the back there just to hide it. But yeah, there is our USB power for our cameras. It's only a dumb little thing, but it's something that's kind of annoying, having to sort of change batteries out regularly during racing and I use my little Ryobi charger, which is fantastic to charge the cameras, but now I won't need to. Just keep them plugged in. Cool, so I've cleaned up that wiring, and now it's time to mount up this box. So I've, let me grab it out. Sorry about the audio changing, I'm switching between cameras. So I've bent those little tabs back, so it kind of gives me a bracket to mount it. So what I'm going to do is very carefully just drill into the firewall and put some nutserts in there. So I've got my nutsert gun there, a couple of nutserts in there and bolted in, and that should keep it in place. And then I just need to, yeah, just connect that one up to my already wired up cable, and that one will go to an earth, and there's an earth right next to it, so that's easy. I did just test it on the battery, and these wires do get quite warm running it, so it's drawing a lot of amperage. I don't know. I think I'll just test it in the workshop here with the fire extinguisher and make sure it's all good. It is a cheap Chinese product, but you know, if it works, it works. So anyway, we'll get the drill out and we'll carefully drill those holes and put some nutserts in, and good to go, Gary. And there we go. I just realized how wonky it is. It didn't look wonky when I was upside down in the footwell, but now I'm sort of upright and looking, it's wonky. But that's okay, no one's gonna see it. So now I just need to make an adapter to that piece up there and run a couple of hoses. Look at this stray red wire. It's connected at both ends now, and I'd have to like cut it and re-splice it to not make it go there. That's so annoying. Oh, maybe I'll do that later. Anyway, the wiring does look a little bit of a mess, but it makes sense to me, and all this looks much better and much neater. So yeah, it's cool. Anyway, maybe we'll test it. Alrighty, so we've got power on, we've got our ignition on, power's on there, we've got our little fuse box, and we want our demister. And there we have it. Just humming away. I've put a 15 amp fuse in there because that seems about right for this, because it's got a fair bit of current draw, but I don't know, maybe I'll just keep running it and see if any of the wiring melts. Wires aren't getting hot, so that's good. Alright, cool. We have a demister. Let's feel it. Oh yeah? That's blowing out a good bit of hot air. So it doesn't need to be much, it just needs a bit of hot air just up the windscreen just to clear it out. So I reckon that'll work a treat. So now I need to make an adapter to adapt this to the windscreen demister. Time for some measuring. Alrighty, next thing to test is our USB ports. So I've just got a little USB-C cable here. Plug that in, and we can plug this into my phone and see if it charges. So we'll turn the ignition on. Ignition is on. Sorry, I'm trying to do all this one-handed. Ah! Charging. Great success. Pretty quick too, must be high amp, so there we go. Ripper. Alrighty, good stuff, we're getting there. Sorry, not the most interesting stuff, but all these little things need to be done. You know, we've now got the majority of the demister in there, which has saved us a ton of weight, saved us 5 kilos. Having those little USB ports in, weighing nothing, a little bit of effort, but not having to change batteries at the track is fantastic. Netting up that wiring, so good. Getting rid of that sound deadening saved us, what was it, 2.8 kilos, and then cleaning all that up. Just these little things that take time, and people don't realize this. This is why if you buy a race car that's already finished, it costs so damn much. It's because all this little stuff takes time. And obviously, if I was to do this when I built the car, it would have been much easier with all the dashboard out and everything out. But, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So, anyway, it's good. Hey, while I'm here, something else I wanted to mention. I've had people ask me about this roll cage. Now, this cage is unreal, but it is overkill for this car. And everyone's like, why have you got such an overkill cage? And I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. When I first started this whole thing, my wife is an intensive care nurse. absolutely beautiful woman and is incredible at her job. But she sees the worst of what happens to people in all sorts of situations. And she said, I don't care if you go do this, but get good safety gear. Do it properly. I'm like, that's cool. Then when I rang my mate Rob from RG Customs, I said, hey dude, I'm going to do this whole thing. And he goes, sweet, I'll do a cage for you. I'm like, rad. He goes, do you mind if I go a bit overboard with it? I'm like, dude, absolutely. Basically, Rob worked for Gary Rogers Motorsport, building roll cages for Scotty McLaughlin and all the big names, and fabricating all sorts of stuff. He did a lot of roll cage stuff. Now he's gone independent, so RG Customs is his solo gig, and he's done some incredible stuff. Like he's building full rear ends on race cars, obviously cages, exhaust, manifolds, pretty much anything he can fabricate. It's incredible. He's done some amazing work, and he's going to do hopefully the new exhaust for this car. Please, Rob. Yeah, and he said, can I, use it as a bit of a demo? So a lot of this stuff, like, there's bends in here that you just wouldn't get in bolting cages or sort of cheap cages. Like all this work here, we've got the double bars, strengthening up here. It's just stuff that you wouldn't see normally in a bolting cage or a standard. Take it to a dude and get a roll cage made. And it fits, like, you have a look at how well it fits the car. It's so tight to the roof. It gives you so much room. It's just a really well-built cage. And yes, it is overkill for an XL. It's overly safe, and it is a little heavier than a bolting cage. I don't care. I'm so happy to be in this cage, and I feel safe in it. And that's more important to me than saving 5 odd kilos, which I'm going to pull out somewhere else anyway. So it's not a big deal. And the car's rigid as it's unreal. So yes, that is why I have an overkill cage in this car. The downside of a bolting cage, if I do bin this car real hard, a lot of guys can unbolt their bolting cages, get a new shell, put the cage back in. I won't be able to do that with this. I have to go and see Rob, and he'll basically see if he can fix the car, or take out some of the. I don't know what the deal is. That's the downside of a cage like this. But right now, I think it's unreal. And the answer is don't bin it. Not that I have a choice. Anyway, so that's my little answer. People asking me about the roll cage. That's the deal. That's what it is. And I think it's fantastic. If you're ever at the track, come and have a look at this cage, because it is unreal. And Rob's work is fantastic. If you ever need stuff fabbed in Melbourne, go and see him. He's a really good dude. He's well priced for the work he does. And he's just a great guy. So cool. Anyway, there's my plug for Rob, because he deserves it. What's next? So we've got that in. I'll measure up those bits and we'll try and design up and 3D print those parts. Not too sure if that'll be in this episode or not. I think the next thing we want to do is get our new seat rails in. I hate dealing with seat rails. They're a pain in the ass, but we're going to do it. So I think we'll bolt the new rails to the seat. We'll rest them in there, and then because we've got the underneath are blanks, so I need to mark out where I need to drill the holes to bolt the seat in the car. So I think we'll bolt the rails to the seat and do that. Or maybe we'll do the ECU. I don't know. Let's see what happens next. Okay, I'm going to do the ECU. So, I figured we'd do it before the seat gets in because we've got more room. So this is the stock bracket that holds the ECU in under the dash. Now, it's a bit of a mess, and honestly, if I could weld and I had any sort of fabrication skills, I would weld some tabs on here and make it like a little thing that bolts on and was all great. But I don't. So, what I'm going to do is, instead of reinventing the wheel, I'm actually going to make this fit here. And there's a couple of spots where I can put a metal hose clamp around. It will clamp to the cage pretty nicely. All I need to do is remove this kind of lumpy section, the top part of this lumpy section. So I'll get the grinder out and I'll cut that bit away. And I should be able to cut that tab off as well and neaten all this up afterwards. And then maybe spray it black or something, I don't know. But with all that, it should actually clamp up pretty well and should fit nicely in there. So I'll take it off and we'll cut it up and see what we can make out of it. Okay, I think we have success, people, so it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but I'll paint it up because that fixes everything. But I'll put a clamp around there and a clamp around here that way and a clamp around that way. and that should hold that really nice and steady. And then that little stopper on the bottom actually rests on the plate for the roll cage. So that's really cool. So then what I'll do is maybe I can put a longer bolt through and I'll put a nut in the back of that and lock that off, because the ECU, you guys can see this will slide on there. Maybe I'll get rid of those washers, but it slides on that side. Then you've just got the one bolt this side. So if I can just get a wing nut bolt for that side, then all I need is just the one wing nut bolt to take it off, which is super duper easy. So that's pretty cool. I think I'll throw a coat of paint on it just to neaten it up a bit. Find some hose clamps, clamp it on, and then figure out some bolts. Might have to go down to Hammer Barn and try and find a wing nut bolt that'll fit, but yeah, I reckon that'll work. Is this the most generic can of black paint you've ever seen in your life? Literally called spray paint. Whatever, that's all I've got at the moment. Alright, it's a couple of hours later. I've gone and dealt with screaming children and all that sort of stuff, and my paint has dried. So check that out. Look, it's not the most amazing thing in the world, but it's crazy secure. So I've just put a clamp around that one, clamp around that one, and it is super solid in there, so that's great. And what I've done is I've put a bolt there, and on the back, or you guys probably can't see it, but I've put a nut there and cranked it up. So that bolt will stay at that distance, it won't move. So we can just use that slot on the ECU, just line it up. And if I can line it up, there we go. So that slots in, and then we just need a wing nut for the bottom there, and that's it. Simples. So that's pretty good. It's about 8 o'clock now, so I'm pretty much done for the day, and hopefully we can pick this up later in the week. I am on holidays now. I did get a call from the boss today. I've got to go and pick up a car for Summernat, so that's okay. It looks like I'm getting a new Ford to drive to Summernat, so win-win. Don't have to put K's on the Subi. Anyway, that's enough for today. Enough of me jabbering. I'm gonna go have a beer, and we'll pick this up in a couple of days. So it's a couple of days later and I've managed to get some time in the shed. Huzzah! Next thing we want to do is put on our delicious Raceworks seat rails. Check out those bad boys. Oh my God, they're so good. So what do we weigh them? They're a bit under a kilo lighter than the standard metal ones I had in the car. It's fantastic. So what I want to do is bolt them to the seat. I want to try and get my seat as low as possible. For some reason, even though when I built the car and when my old man and his mate helped me with the floor on this car, I was using the old Sparco seat. It was a non-wing back. It was a good seat. I got it from my mate Benry's. And sat in there and it was perfect. I had heaps of headroom. And even though this bolts in at the same spot, there's something about the shape of it or whatever, it's a little bit higher, even though I've got it on the lower setting. Yeah, the seat just seems to be a little higher. So I'm hoping with these new rails, I can try and get it down a little bit lower again. But because all the holes are different, I need to bolt it in, put it in the car, figure out where I want it. And then the bottom of these are blanks, so they don't have any holes in them. So once I've figured out the position, I'll put in some bolts in the actual floor holes because I've got nuts welded into the floor. So it's literally a straight bolt in. And then mark them with a white paint pen and we'll just pop the seat down, mark the bottom of these rails, and then we can drill them out and then bolt the seat in. So yeah, let's do that. First of all, we're gonna get the rails on the seat, make sure it feels all good, and then go from there. All right, put the seat in without damaging the roll cage if possible. Now we sit in it, see how it feels. So, too far away from the pedals here, got to come forward a lot. And I'm way too upright. Alrighty, we're moving to GoPro because it's a bit hard to film with the proper camera. but our rails are on. Now, this is pretty much the position, the only position it's going to work in. So I'm going to be tilted back. It's a very upright seat. It's a bit of a funky seat, this. I like it, and thank you to Ryan for giving it to me. It's fantastic. But this little guy here was definitely a better shape and fit in the car. But it's not a wingback, and I'd rather the safety of a wingback. So we're going to persist with this until I can afford to get something else. But it's a great little seat. Anyway, so we've got the rails on. Pretty much has to be on the top. I can't go any lower on this because you have a look, the seat is actually touching the rail. It can't go any lower. So we're kind of there. What I did do though is take the padding out of that Recaro and put it in there, and that's a bit of a thinner pad, and it actually helps get me a bit lower in the car. So I think that'll work. Now what we need to do is mark out where the rails need to be drilled. So what I've done is I've gone and got 8 bolts, because when my old man did this for me, he basically did 2 positions, so we can go forward or back, depending on where we want to be. And so I've got all those bolt holes available. So I've put bolts in there, and then I've got some CAD, some cardboard aided design. I'm going to lay that over the top, and then just use a hammer to mark where the holes are. And then we can lay that out on our rails there to see where we can get bolts in, because the problem is I need to get a bolt head in there somewhere. That's going to be a pain in the ass. Now, if that doesn't fit, which I'm thinking it's probably not going to, we do have the overhang here. So we've got this spot here where I can drill through. Obviously that won't line up with one of our existing bolt holes, but this is very thick, was it SHS? Rectangular hollow tube, RHS. It's very thick RHS, like it's very thick walled, it's very strong. So what I'll probably do is just drill all the way through it, and then just put a lock nut on the back and bolt the rail in that way. It would be nice to have another nut welded in, but I don't have a welder, I don't have the skills, and I don't really want to take this out because this is all welded in and it'd be a pain in the ass. So yeah, I'm just going to drill all the way through and then just do that, and I think that's probably going to be the easiest way. So the main thing I need to do, obviously, is mark these front holes and then see where the back's going to line up. So we use a bit of cardboard and mark that up and see where it goes. Let's go. Alrighty, so we've got our holes punched out there out of our old beer carton. Ha, is there anything beer can't do? Amazing. So there's our holes for the front marked out. Now I've looked, I just had a look, and unfortunately these holes are just going to clash with the seats, so we're going to have to go with our plan of drilling through here and then into the rails in the car. So not ideal, not exactly what I wanted to do, but it's what we're going to have to do. Alrighty, let's get this bad boy back in. We can mark up those rear holes. Alrighty, so she's bolted in, and now we just need to mark our holes. You see our holes down there? Okay, I went down to the shops and I got some bolts so we can bolt all this in, so that's all good. The only problem I'm now facing is this bit here, this top of the bracket. Because my belt goes there, it's actually going to be rubbing, that edge is going to be rubbing on the webbing, which I don't like. I don't want that weakening my belts. So what I'd like to do is just chop that corner off and just, yeah, just round it off. I think I had to do this with my old rail as well, just to, means the belt has a cleaner path and it's not going to get damaged in that, because I do not want that damaging the belt. That stops me going at that windscreen. So I'll pop the seat back out and the rails off again. Maybe I'll just do it in the car and we'll just use the grinder and just chop that corner off, give it a bit of round off. Should be good. Alrighty, corners are cut off and I've rounded them all off so they're nice and smooth. So now I'll put the seat in and hopefully bolt it in for the last time. You can tell when I get up in the morning and go, hey, I'm gonna do a Nugget Project video. I really work on my appearance. You know, hair, makeup, what clothes I'm gonna wear. I literally rolled out of bed and walked to the garage. I am not a prissy YouTuber. Okay, our race seat is in and it's sturdy as, it's a little bit lower. We've got a lightweight race rails on there, so that's nice, saved us about 1 kilo. And yeah, I've just fed all the belts through, I'm just gonna put the shoulder straps through. Awesome, good stuff. Bit of a mission, but we're there. And also that little cutout I did, you can see there, so the belts are clear, not gonna get damaged, it's perfect. The other thing I did is I dropped into Hammer Barn and I got us a wing nut. So that little wing nut there will just wind off, so if we need to get the ECU out, it's just finger tight, just undo that. I've got a little spring washer on the back so it won't come loose with vibrations, and then we just pop the ECU out and give it to whoever's yelling at us for cheating. So perfect, easy done. Alrighty, and that's it guys, that's all we kind of wanted to do today. So we got our heater in, got our ECU relocated, fixed up a bunch of wiring, got our lightweight seat rails in, car's starting to get there. The only thing I didn't finish in this episode, which I have the prototype here, is this guy. So this is a prototype for our heater adapter. So our little 12 volt heater under there, this is one I designed up on CAD. And basically that will allow, so the heater's got 2 ports coming out of it, and then this will go up and adapt to the stock venting system that goes up to the windscreen, you know, like the Demister bit. So my plan was it sort of clips on and then screws in, and it's close, but I do need to sort of change some dimensions here. I've got to loosen this bit off little bits, but it's pretty close. So that will be an adapter that literally will just go clip 2 screws into the stock screw holes, and that means our heater will just blow straight up in there. There's no need to just shove it up in there and duct tape and do, you know, make it gross. This will be a lot nicer. So although I was definitely hoping to get this finished and show you guys it installed, but it's just not quite right. So we need to do a bit more work in it. So I'll do a redesign, have another print. It takes 12 hours to print. I know it's only small, but it's quite a lot of detail in there. So 12 hours to print that. So I'm doing up another iteration and we'll print that out, and I'll hopefully show you in another video in the future, show you that all finished and in there. But apart from that, the heater works, just needs to be connected up to the fans. But yeah, how good's that? So everything's good. Thank you for watching guys. Bit of a mishmash video. I know we're going between like nice camera and GoPro and all sorts of stuff. And my nice camera seems to be on a tilt at the moment. I can't even set up a tripod straight. Don't mind me. Thanks for watching guys. And thank you to Raceworks for the seat rails, Unreal, and who else supplied parts today? I don't know, me. Thanks to me for supplying parts. In the next episode, we're gonna do some fun stuff. So we've got lots of little bits to make this car better. I didn't really know how to label the episode. I've got one thing that's really cool. So that'll probably be the title of the episode, and lots of little bits. So anyway, check back on that soon. Thanks for watching. See you soon.